Good evening and welcome to this webinar with Natural World Safaris. My name is Ruth Peacey and I'm the Polar Charter Coordinator. We've got a really exciting trip this May, the ultimate Svalbard Safari, and it's an intimate experience with 12 passengers exploring the best of the Arctic scenery and wildlife. But what sets this trip apart is who you'll be travelling with and the access you'll have. So this evening, I'm absolutely delighted to introduce our specialist leader, Lizzie Daly. Lizzie is a scientist, presenter, and filmmaker whose adventurous spirit and storytelling mastery have made her a recognisable face on global wildlife television. She's an advocate for conservation and a huge inspiration, encouraging everyone and anyone to find adventure in the outdoors, something we at Natural World Safaris can also promise you up in Svalbard. So welcome, Lizzie. How are you doing?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really good. I'm glad we're here. And this has kind of been a bit of a long time coming and a real dream for me as well, as you know. And I'm sure we'll talk about the Arctic is a very special place to me. So yeah, I'm excited and excited to chat with you as well, Ruth. It's great to see you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so happy that you're here and doing this, and even more excited for your trip, of course. Just to say that this is very much a conversation, and if anyone else has any questions for Lizzie, please do ask a question, and we'll do our best to answer them as we go. So send them in. So first of all, I'm really keen to hear more about your experiences. As you've already said there, you've got quite a lot of experience in the Arctic, and I am particularly keen. You undertook a pretty serious challenge, personal challenge there in 2022, didn't you?
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, that's slightly more rogue compared to what I normally do. So,
Yeah.
but for a lot of the projects it's taken me, across the Arctic from, up in Norway, to Svalbard, over to places like Alaska and far-flung towns. This
Mm.
one was a bit more of a personal challenge for me.
Yeah.
And normally you get the joy of being, with a crew, with a team, and with that comes
Mm.
huge benefits. You've got support, logistical support. It's exciting, right? It's that real kind of team feel, which is actually a big part of why I love, working in wildlife film and going out with people to share these experiences. But I also wanted to know that, I could operate in these environments myself. And so the project kind of came about where I wanted to write about something important to me while also doing something kind of physically challenging. So it was a 140-kilometer run over a few days through the Finnish Arctic wilderness and, navigating through deep snow on winter trails, through coniferous forests. Hard, Ruth, is hard. One of the hardest things I've done. But
Amazing.
most importantly, part of that story, I was actually writing for Sidetrack magazine at the time. It
Hmm.
was looking at this climate angle on the new snow that's been seen up in these parts of the Arctic. So the Sami language there is over 300 words for snow and ice. And there's this new climate-driven snow which has no name. And it's a climate related kind of interesting angle on this new snow. And actually during my run, I experienced that because I experienced that extreme snap of cold down to like minus 35 and then up again to 10 degrees over just a few days. And so it was kind of like a very like experiential thing, not only because I got blisters and I can't sweat and I have to like make my own water with snow as I'm going along, but I'm fully
Yeah.
immersed in that environment. And for that, yeah, it was really amazing.
That's incredible. I mean, such a feat of endurance and what a demonstration to commitment to a goal. Like unbelievable, just
Yeah.
absolutely phenomenal. And I guess that's something that you also need for wildlife filmmaking. And we'll come on to that in a bit because I know that that's a huge part of your life. But I'm desperate to ask, did you see any wildlife while you were doing that run at all?
Ruth, I saw barely any wildlife. I was fighting for my life. No, I saw some crossbills, which was really nice.
Nice.
It was like about 4 hours of daylight every day, right? So middle of winter. So I did see some crossbills, which was super nice. But other than that, and in some ways that adds to it because you're kind of moving through an environment and you're noticing the other aspects of beauty and what makes the Arctic so special, the light, the snow, the ice, it's I think there's as much beauty in that which kind of carries you forward as well.
Amazing, amazing. I think that just shows, as you say, just so much more about the Arctic and the multifacets that it has there. But of course, through your filmmaking experiences, you have had some awesome wildlife encounters, and you filmed all over the world, including the Arctic and Norway, as you've said. Can you talk us through an experience that particularly stands out for you in the Arctic?
Yeah, so oh gosh, so many. I think a few stories I'd love to share, but I'll kind of
Mm.
focus on Norway first because the
Yeah.
north of Norway is absolutely incredible, and perhaps people on the call will know the town of Sheravoy well because it's become the hub of going to see the humpback whales and the orcas that come to the north of the north of Norway and move through the fjords there to make the most of the herring spawning. And I've now been for various projects and things about 5 times, I think, every
Wow.
time offering something completely different, a new experience, a new behavior, a new encounter. And it's got this magic, which is really hard to describe, as you're watching Northern Lights and looking for otter tracks along the fjord edges. And then as you head out into the kind of inkiness
Mhm.
of that stretch, you just kind of, yeah, you've got kind of snow-capped mountains all around you, golden light. There's really nothing like it. What is interesting is I've kind of gone quite a few times over a really important shift in tourism there. So,
Interesting.
Natural World Safari, we're a big part of kind of having responsible tourism actually in this stretch. I believe they're actually, one of the first to promote and to be able to have offer that interaction, but do it in a really kind of sustainable and ethical way. And the most recent trip, and actually I haven't been back since for this reason, but the most recent trip I was with some friends and we were putting together a film around the impact of having so many boats around Wales, which I don't know how much we'll go into on this, but it's a big part of the story and a big part of tourism as well.
That's so true. And I should say that one of the things that I really love about Natural World Safaris is that it is a very responsible operator. And as with filmmaking, it's the best experiences you really get when you're able to see natural behavior unfolding, which can only happen when the animals aren't stressed. So um, that's all about responsible wildlife watching in all aspects, I think, and something that we do well. So you've mentioned Norway there, but I know you've also been on the other side of the Arctic as well, haven't you, towards Alaska and Canada? Can you maybe elaborate on some of your experiences over there?
Yes, yeah. So the year before last, I had the great opportunity to actually go on a recce on for a shoot for a new series to try and find the cloud wolves of Hudson Bay. Yeah, and this is well, I have a thing about wolves. I have to say they've escaped me. I've gone on, I've been dropped off on Vancouver Island trying to see and film them again in winter. There's a bit of a theme going on, but I wanted to get them in the dramatic storms, and as a result, it made kind of tracking them really difficult. I've managed to see them across Europe, and this was a great opportunity to see a pack that are the top when it comes to, we talk about Arctic specialists. These
Yeah.
cloud wolves operate in a way that's just phenomenal. So we had about a week to try and get out, and we used kind of snowmobiles to every day to kind of follow the fresh tracks. And that's the beauty of going out in these winter months is you can actually see it in the snow. It's a lot harder when you're just looking at kind of tundra and along the edge of Hudson Bay. And it was just it's hard to describe because you've got like minus 40 degrees Celsius, like wind chill bringing it down to like minus 50 degrees, I think was the coldest we read. And you feel like you're kind of getting into the rhythm, which is what I love about, shoots and these experiences is like after a few days you really kind of get used to the environment and you get used to the cold and you kind of go through what you need to do to layer up and then you get in your routines as well, prepping your kit, taking out your binos, things like that. So after a good few days, we'd had an idea of the territory of these wolves and where they were going. And we landed towards the end of the trip about 40 kilometers away from the main camp. And there on the frozen river edge was this pack just sleeping. So we got the absolute joy of, sitting, watching from a distance, quite away actually. I think we were like almost 100 meters away from this pack and they were all just sleeping on the edge and we just watched for a while and then as we were thinking right we need to go back, we've got 40 kilometers to head back, they all got up and started obviously, socializing and yipping and everything. And they slowly came over this frozen riverbed and came right over to us. And, just what, 10 meters away, there's a whole pack of giant wolves. I can't, yeah, I'm not a tall
I've
person,
got the
by the way.
feels. I've got the feels
Yeah,
just hearing
yeah,
that.
yeah. But just to be real with everyone on the call, I'm 5'2", so I'm not a tall gal, but like, really big wolves coming, over my hip in height. And just extraordinary to see them and extraordinary then to film them go off and then start their hunting for moose and follow the moose tracks in the snow. So in terms of, I guess, immersed experiences, that's really stood out for me. And, I think you'll hear me say this time and time again, but yes, it's about that wildlife encounter. That's the end kind of amazing cherry on top, if you like. But it's so much more about the environment and kind of getting to that point and the extremes, which is what I really love about the Arctic. If I may, Ruth, the other story that I wanted to
Mhm.
share was actually over on the Alaskan coast, so northwest Alaska. I spent some time in the Aleutian Chains, the Aleutian Island, which is just like a wild kind of archipelago of islands. You get bald eagles taking over small fishing towns. It's really cool. But the main focus of the shoot that we did was looking at this community that live in a place where bowhead whales migrate past, and at the right time of year, around March every year, when the ice freezes over, you get the bowhead whales making that migration past this town. This is locally known as Ukleavik, the town, but it's also known as Barrow. And here you've got kind of carcasses of bowhead whales and polar bears just picking at them and, walking across sandy spits. And the only way you can get to it is on like quad bikes, so that you arrive in style on, in the middle of nowhere and you just kind of get to a spit of sand and come across a bowhead whale carcass with fresh polar bear prints, which is just, yeah, it's incredible. The reason we were there was actually with a scientist. She's called Kate Stafford, incredible scientist looking at again, it's climate related science, but she's essentially listening out for climate change. So she's hearing, subarctic species move further north over the years, but also listening out for the song and calls of bowhead whales to understand where they're going, to understand how they're communicating, and look at kind of those shifts in patterns of behavior and what might be potentially impacting them, both from ships and human impact, but also environmentally as well. So yeah, just beautiful, beautiful Arctic stories. I could bore you to death with them, Ruth, so many.
That's absolutely incredible. And how amazing that you're like working with scientists and finding out about something that's affecting the Arctic area so much in terms of climate change and everything. I'm going to just have a little sidebar here because speaking of science and polar bears, there are obviously some polar bears have collars on and tags, so it's the females that would typically be collared in a polar bear, but and they're used as a sort of conservation and scientific tool to help find out where these animals are going, which um, I am forgive me if I'm incorrect here, but I believe that you're doing a PhD at the moment, and
Um,
your
yeah.
PhD is specifically on the movement of wild animals in changing landscapes. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So a lot of the tagging, when we think of tagging, you think of those big kind of collars, GPS collars, which, as you're right, Ruth, only on females, just because anatomically they would actually just slip off the neck of the male polar bears. Um, but it's a big part of kind of my background as a scientist. So, I've kind of gone at it in lots of different ways, but found Swansea University has an incredible movements lab there, which uses tiny tags. They're called accelerometers,
Mm.
which are different to the GPS collar that you know so well and you see so often, in programs. And I'm sure for people listening out in the field, you've seen some kind of collared animal. The tagging is a really interesting area because ultimately the focus of tagging in animals to kind of build up an understanding of where they're going, and that can have huge benefits in terms of understanding how to protect a new area or an important den site. It could have a variety of real benefits to kind of build up an understanding of where that animal is going.
Mhm.
Tags we use are about this big. So for a lot of the projects where we've deployed these tags, we piggyback off of GPS collar projects. So we're able to attach our tags onto their collar and then design it so that it drops off after a certain amount of time, say 30 days or something. And the only problem with that is we have to then go and retrieve the tag, which is actually really hard when you're like in the middle of the Brazilian Pantanal and it's like on a tiny little clump in the middle of a flooded wetland. Anyway, I
Wow.
won't bore you with that. But yeah, it comes with its own challenges in terms of logistics. But the data you can get back from the accelerometers we use is interesting because it kind of maps what the animal is doing. And the idea is that the combination of GPS collaring data, which tells you where the animal is going, and then the accelerometer data, what the animal is doing, is suddenly you get like a really big picture on, that whole life history of said species. And that's really important because you can pick up on behaviors like energetics, hunting, stress behaviors, I guess all the things unseen, right? With GPS
Mhm.
data, which is so invaluable, you know where that animal is going, but you're kind of missing a bit of a key aspect of their behavior. So yeah, I've gone on an absolute rant, as I know I would, but tagging is a big part of kind of my interests and my background. And yeah, as you say, it's a key part in understanding species of conservation concern, like polar bears as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you've obviously had your polar bear encounters in Alaska, but you also, I think, saw some when you went to Svalbard not so long ago.
Yeah, yeah, we had some really cool encounters actually. I think we saw in the end four or five polar bears,
Cool.
um, none of which were collared, interestingly,
Mm.
which I was expecting just because obviously, there's certain areas that we go to, and obviously the polar bears that are accessible are sometimes the ones that get collared, right?
Yeah.
Had the extraordinary, yeah, opportunity to see yeah, uncollared polar bears. But we saw some amazing swimming behavior and hunting and, sitting at ice holes on the ice for hours on end, which is really, really cool. So some really dynamic behavior and interactions while we were there. And it kind of really, really different actually to some of the other polar bear encounters I've had elsewhere. And I think that's what's really nice is, you feel really immersed and embedded in a place like Svalbard. You feel like you are entering their environment and you're almost just like looking through a window and witnessing it just kind of play out in real time. And yeah, just some really, really standout encounters, especially in Svalbard. Yeah.
That's amazing. And so I barely have to ask, what's driving you to want to go back?
So many things. Yeah. So many things. I think the Arctic is a really special place for so many reasons. I mean, I'm a bit of a seabird lover. I know you are as well, Ruth. I mean, the Arctic supports one of the largest migrations on Earth of the millions of birds that head to this region to be able to take advantage of the long days of light, long daylight hours, and the kind of the abundance of food. And I think as a result, it's kind of it's a biodiversity hotspot. Um, I think there's stories in everything that you see. There's stories in the sea ice. It's not just kind of a blank canvas of white. There's, communities of ice algae and bacteria, and it goes on to support so much more life and across the food chain. So I think for me, it's where I feel, I guess, most inspired. And I don't know if this is cliche because most people who've been to the Arctic feel the same, but it's just got that little bit of magic in everything that you see, whether it is, the light and you're looking at it from a photography angle, whether it is you're a keen birder or biologist and you want to kind of learn more about an environment that's, arguably one of the fastest changing, but it's also one of the most specialist. It's also one of the most vibrant. As I say, it's a biodiversity hotspot. It's home to, perhaps a lower abundance of species, but species that kind of have such important ecological roles. And I think there's a lot to be said in that, and just how yeah, how magical all the pieces are when you see them play out together. Um, I think, yeah, maybe I thought the first time I went to the Arctic, I'd be like, cool, loved it, really brilliant environment, habitat, loved it. Um, I feel like I've seen it, but every experience, every time I go back, it offers something different. And I think that's just what makes it so magical.
That's awesome. That's just absolutely incredible. And I think like as you say, it's kind of capturing that essence and trying to look at that wildlife and everything.
Yeah.
Do you have kind of any tips for people who might be trying to capture that on camera themselves? Because obviously you do a lot of your own filmmaking, a lot of your own work's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, yeah. For filming or for photography or both?
Well, I guess what kind of let's go with the filming because that's kind of what you really specialize in. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean a big part of it is obviously we'll be on the vessel for a lot of it. So
Mhm.
normally I'd be focusing on a number of things such as your lens, your the lighting, and then your stability, the tripod being a really big part of it. But obviously having to adapt to that, there's kind of changes that you'd have to consider when we're on a when we are on the moving vessel. Uh,
Yeah.
but a lot of it is around light. ND filters are incredibly important. We live
Yes.
in quite like a bright and
Yeah.
kind of full environment with a lot of snow, lots of ice. But what's really cool is you can really play then with your settings to kind of really bring
Mhm.
out some kind of monochromy, contrasty images, or you can go for something that's quite bold as well when you get kind of a lot of those golden the golden light,
Yes.
we're going to get a lot of as well, seeing as that we're going to have a lot of
Amazing.
daylight.
And it's
Um,
worth just saying, sorry, I'm just
yeah, yeah,
gonna,
yeah, go for
just
it.
for anyone who isn't sure, not aware, an ND filter is like sunglasses for your camera. I'm just throwing that
Mm,
in there because I had to look that up when I first got
yeah,
into photography and things.
yeah.
Um, so we've talked about how to take pictures, we've talked about some of your experiences. How do you keep warm? What are your top tips for anyone who's heading up there and worried about whether they're going to be too cold or too sweaty?
Okay, yeah, really good point. Just quickly on the settings as well, because it's one
Yeah.
thing I think, and for anyone who wants to join, we'll go through this in detail on the day. But like a lot of people don't realize that your camera will actually underexpose snow, so it's kind of good to kind of compensate for that on your exposure to make sure you're avoiding kind of like grey snows as well. But we can go into that in more detail. But yeah, there's lots of like interesting ways you can kind of play around with settings and things as well. In terms of staying warm, layering is a really big part of it. Is exactly that. You don't want to get sweaty because obviously that sweat will then create moisture, and then when that moisture is trapped, that'll kind of actually cool down your core. So making sure you have the right layering and you have your thermal layering. And actually for ease, I like to kind of have like a fixed lower body layer, which I know I'm going to kind of stay continually warm in, and then be able to like take things off on my top layer. So I'll have kind of my thermals, and then I'll have maybe like a nice fleece to kind of hold in all that heat. I might have then a down jacket or synthetic jacket to kind of hold in that warmth, and then a waterproof over that. And then I'll kind of take those on and off throughout the trip, depending on how cold I am, how warm I am. But it's that game, isn't it, of like making sure that you're kind of delayering and relaying so you're never kind of too cold or too hot. But yeah, as a general rule, I'll almost kind of thermal on my bottoms, and then I'll actually add on sometimes an extra layer. I'm somebody who does get cold, so I'll have kind of two underlayers on my bottom, and then kind of like a waterproof trousers over that as well. But yeah, just making sure you've obviously got your gloves and your hats and all your additionals as well to keep your kind of your head and your extremities warm, especially with taking photos and kind of having your cameras out the whole time as well. It's going to be a big part of it. So for gloves, I typically take a really thin kind of layer, thin glove, followed by then like a thicker kind of more. Um, just warm glove, but not necessarily waterproof. But then, if I really feel the cold, I'll have kind of three pairs of gloves. It's not overkill, is it, Ruth? I don't
No,
think it
nothing's
is.
overkill. You're all good. You're
And
all
then
good.
I'll have kind of like a Yeah, a bigger, more waterproof layer as well. And again, that's just for me, for somebody who feels the cold a little bit more. It's good to have options. It's good to have
Yeah.
those layers and options than be stuck and actually just end up freezing off your fingers or feeling really uncomfortable.
It's so true because
Yeah.
it's all about dressing right for the environment. And I have to say,
Yeah.
I do find it quite amusing that you run cold even though you've literally been in the most extreme temperatures on the most brilliant
Oh.
adventures. So that's absolutely incredible. And thank you for those top tips because I think that's really important. And I should say that if you do join one of our safaris, we will send you a packing list so you will know kind of what to add and what to be wearing. But it's really helpful to hear from the pro, definitely. I think we're pretty much running to the end of our webinar. Have I missed any other stories that you want to share that you're desperate to get out there, or have we pretty much covered?
All I'd say is that, the Arctic, okay, of course, you've got your kind of standout species that really, I think, bring a lot of people to that part of the world. Whether you're into little orcs or Arctic fox, or you got you're a landscape photographer, or you do want to see the icons like the polar bears, you will leave feeling so much more inspired by everything else around it, how the ecosystem interacts, the people. It's a really special place, and I would say if everyone and anyone could do one thing before the end of their career or life, it's go to the Arctic because I think it does so much more. It changes your perspective. It offers something that's a lot deeper, and all of us are trying to find ways of connecting to nature and these environments in new ways and deep ways, and the Arctic does that. So please come along. That would be great.
It'd be so good. It would be absolutely fantastic. And I think hopefully this has given everybody a bit of a taste for the kind of stories and the adventurous spirit that Lizzie has. I mean, Lizzie, thank you for sharing your dedication to exploring and sharing the natural world this evening. It's really appreciated. And we're really looking forward to the Svalbard adventure with you in May. But before you go,
Yes,
you've got an announcement to make.
I do. I do. Shall I give a bit of context or
Ooh, well, yes, so natural. Well, sorry, I haven't even said what that is. Do you want
I
to?
can jump in.
You can go for it. Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, so actually, so we had this really exciting competition run on Instagram offering a space actually on this trip in May to Svalbard, which was great. And we've picked a winner. So I'm going to announce the winner. I wish there was a drum roll kind of feature in this, but you'll have to be it, Ruth. Nice, great. So coming with is Allegra Hutton. Woo!
Woo!
She's a photographer, right? She does lots
I
of
believe
wonderful things.
so. Yeah.
Yeah. So really looking forward to that. And if Allegra you're on this, then looking forward to meeting you.
Yeah. Huge congratulations to Allegra. And remember that if you would like to join Lizzie on the adventure of a lifetime, then there are still a few spaces left. So do get in touch with Natural World Safaris. And that's it for this evening. So thank you very much, Lizzie, and good evening, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Ruth.